So I wanted to first thank you both for being here. Pierre, you're French, and Beda, you're German, but beyond that, you have a lot in common. So you two worked in the industrial space for a while. You were both general managers, and you were both leaders in a multicultural environment. And I wanted to take those three facts and structure our conversation around them. So first, I wanted to hear more about your experience and the supply chain challenges that you had in the industrial space, and I'll ask questions about that. Two, I wanted to understand the challenges of being a general manager in how planning affects you, right? How does commercial and supply chain interact with each other, and how we can improve that? And third, I wanted to understand about your experiences in change management, right? A topic that came up before, in a multicultural environment. So to start with that, Pierre, maybe you can introduce us a bit to the typical challenges that you have in the supply chain of the elevator and escalator industry.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Pierre. As Joao and Bart said, I worked at KONE as a member of the executive board for 10 years, and I was in charge of the South Europe, Middle East, and Africa territory. So I had customers from Brussels to Johannesburg, from Lisbon to Karachi, quite diverse environment from the geographic culture. I think everyone is familiar with lifts and escalators. That's part of our life. I mean, at KONE, we move 1 billion people every day. So I think we all know that. But if I give you a little more insight about our business and the supply chain characteristics, I mean, starting with buildings like this one. I'm very happy to welcome you in a KONE lifts building. Like many of the iconic buildings in the London skyline, the team has worked very well to get significant market share. The walkie-talkie building, which you can see here, the one across the river, the Shard, the Gherkin, I mean, they're all equipped with KONE lifts. And so you didn't see it on the lift itself because the architects wants to keep the brand, absolutely unique. But I can tell you that they are KONE lift. So a building like this is very special. It's a bespoke kind of solution. It's the largest suite of panoramic scenic elevators, high-speed 45 stories elevators. But it's not the only kind of thing that we did at KONE. At the same time, we are shipping 150,000 elevators a year. And those are job starts. We do tens of thousands of job starts and job closure every year. So this is volume business. And then we're in the business of servicing the elevators. And we're talking about millions of parts that are flowing every day through our supply chain to bring it to preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, predictive maintenance now, which are absolutely critical. And I would say the major impact of supply chain is on customer satisfaction. And when you deliver a site well, when you deliver spare parts on time so that the elevator can be put back in service the fastest, I mean, you have a huge impact on customer satisfaction. And as you know, customer satisfaction drives share, and share drives revenue and profit. So as a commercial leader, the less you hear about supply chain issues, the better you are. But actually, now we realize that it is a differentiating factor in the competition. And the customer's expectation in terms of delivery are changing. And I think we will talk more about that during the course of this discussion. But I see the demand of the customers that are getting, more and more demanding in terms of, how quickly I want elevators to be shipped to my sites. The other characteristics I want to say is that the ultimate factory in the elevator business is the building site. We're not shipping a finished product from a KONE factory. I mean, everything converges on the building site, and this is where the final assembly is taking place. So you can imagine the challenges that it poses in terms of supply chain. The fact that, KONE sub-assemblies, other suppliers, they all converge to the building site, and then it's put back in place together.
Yeah, as Zhao mentioned, good morning first from my side as well. I spent my entire career, my entire professional life in the automotive industry. The automotive industry is a high volume, low margin business that is very much linked to high investments and long payback times. So everybody who is considering a next career step, please watch that carefully. It's the most demanding industry, I think, related to quality, but supply chain security as well. It's a system that was built for more than 100 years, 125 years now, around a very, very hierarchical approach. And you see that hierarchical approach from the body language, from who is talking and sitting at which side at the table, from the planning systems, and from the expectations and your commercial agreements. It's pretty simple. You deliver what the customer is asking for to the price that the competitor cannot beat anymore. So it's a business that is pretty simple. At the end of the day, it's only working if your factories are running on old 8 cylinders all the time, and that you don't have any kind of interruption. As soon as your business is dropping below an 80–85% utilization rate, you're out of the race and you're in a vicious cycle in leaving the business. So supply chain, not only from the logistic point of view, but from the reliability, from the relationship, from contract definition, supply chain is your business. You can only win by driving to scale. And this driving to scale starts at the OEM level. It goes down to tier 1. It goes from tier 1 to tier 3 and going down. So all is about strategic optimization of scale, respecting geopolitical restrictions, and make sure that you have a delivery chain that is working day and night to your favor. So if you ask me if I have been in contact with supply chain, I would say my whole life long, in very different ways. I mean, I started with Bosch, which I think it's one of the best organized business machines that I have met during my 35 years of career. And it's very thoughtful, it's very long-term oriented, it's privately owned, basically no quarterly threats around there that I learned to know a little bit more when I was working, or when I was running the automotive business from JCI. So different environment, which reflects the way you are handling your supply chain issues as well. Long-term planning, stabilization, the right make and buy decisions. I mean, Bosch is now starting their own fab. They are producing semiconductors. What a decision, a $1 billion generation bet that they put on the table, and how right they were, without knowing about a semiconductor crisis, without knowing about COVID, that this is a move. If you do electronics, you need to have your own fab, and you need to be prepared for that. And I was already part of that decision or discussion a long time ago. So if you ask me the importance of supply chain management, I would say it's getting across the entire line of taking the right make and buy decisions, picking the right partners, looking at the right way of communicating with them on the other side. And what I experienced then during the chip crisis or the supply chain crisis that was mentioned this morning already a couple of times was just crazy. I mean, these were daily calls with CEO to CEO and the supply base. I had one premium supplier in Germany who decided to send me hourly WhatsApp messages about the supply status. And whenever we got into red numbers, if it was at 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or whenever it is, I was expected to be on the phone and give an explanation by WhatsApp, not by call, but by WhatsApp, to give an explanation what's going wrong there. So
the Samsung SDS.
exactly. So supply chain in automotive is a question of living or die.
So I think it's well established the importance of managing supply chain really well in both these industries. Thank you so much for that. I think shifting now to that second portion of the discussion, right? You're both general managers, and general managers are often sitting above both commercial and operations and supply chain and have a responsibility for the end result. So Pierre, I'm curious to hear, you're talking about this point about customer satisfaction, right? Examples that either supply chain worked really well and really helped you, or conversely didn't really help, and that interaction between operations and supply chain didn't support you.
Well, I think there are plenty of great examples of how demonstrating supply chain resilience and reliability help to drive customer satisfaction and market share. Let me give you one example, which is or dealing with the Paris Metro Authority. 12 years ago, we had almost zero market share. I mean, we used to be a supplier like 30 years ago with one of our brands, but somehow we lost the link. We became too rigid in our approach, where the Paris Metro was quite demanding from an engineering perspective, and we didn't want to do what they were asking for. But we went back to them and we said, give us the ability to demonstrate that we can deliver. So they gave us a few little jobs. So it was mostly escalator business. And year after year, we demonstrated that KONE supply chain was able to cope with the highly sophisticated demand of the Paris Metro. And year after year, we were able to grow our share. And now, with the 2024 Olympics in sight, and Paris is building great metro infrastructure, which is called Grand Paris, and we got 60% of that market. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of business. And that was driven by the ability of KONE to demonstrate that the supply chain was working. We were capable of adapting to the late changes of the customer, and also sticking with the deadlines that they had given us to us. So I think that's one example, but I could certainly cite a few others which show that the capabilities of the supply chain is critical for customer sat and share.
Maybe to follow up on that question, can you tell a bit more about the particular interaction between the operations, supply chain, and sales and commercial, and how they can work well together?
Well, I think the challenges have always been the fact that the organization was siloed, mm-hmm. And you couldn't even say there is sales and there is supply chain. Actually, there was different silos within each of the organization. And within supply chain itself, you had supplier management, you had manufacturing, you had the distribution, the logistics from the manufacturing side to the distribution center. And then there was a handover between the global distribution centers and the local distribution to the reloading points and to the customer site. And each of those things were handled by a different part of the organization. So the challenges was coming from organizations that are suboptimizing, that are not using the same KPIs. So, mostly supply chain organizations were measured on output. What did I deliver when and at which cost? And the customer organization were measured on the ability to deliver the customer and to get the revenue and the profit. And so different organization, different KPIs, lack of trust, and lack of a common set of data that kind of is customer driven. And I think when you are able to overcome some of those challenges, obviously you deliver a much better job.
Yeah, fantastic. And Beda, I think we're keen to hear your thoughts on that potential disconnect, similar to what Pierre was saying. And also, if you have any thoughts about, obviously, how the role of technology to bringing those two sides of the organization together.
Yeah, first of all, I can very much build on what Pierre has just said. These are different roles in a company, different roles in the business processes. So there is, I think, the need for a healthy tension. I think that if I look at the automotive business, for example, the commercial guys, if they go to the customer, there's a very high probability that they get beaten up. And if they don't have the feeling that if they are coming back with a bad answer to the organization, that they are getting beaten up at home as well, I think that's getting out of balance over time. So a little bit of healthy tension in the organization, raising your voice when your KPIs and when the way that you are measured on success is getting out of sync. I think that's something that is okay. It's starting to get dangerous, and I would like to pick that example of the chip crisis, the semiconductor crisis that we just discussed before this morning, which was hitting the automotive industry across the board pretty heavily. There were just not enough semiconductors, which you cannot change by no planning system in the entire world. But if you look at the financial numbers that came out of that supply chain crisis, you're surprised how great the OEMs did. Yeah. They were really taking commercial, financial, strategic adventures, even strategic repositioning. If I look at Daimler, without talking about customers too much, but what a great job in repositioning that company to a high brand, luxury brand kind of cars, and just keep shipping that part of the segment and not shipping the other part anymore. A great solution. So winners in the supply chain, the OEMs, the big losers, and we will see a wave of bankruptcies going through the industry during the next couple of months. Where is that difference coming from? And there's one fundamental root cause in that is, and the fact is that the supply base over time has allowed the industry to get with their commercial supply conditions out of sync with the technical lead times. Mm-hmm. So they started to commit more and more to lead times that they cannot fulfill, because they were living in an industry that for 100 years was moving around a 5 to 10% up and down. If it was dropping 10%, it was already a disaster. Now this whole thing dropped 70% in a sudden, and in a sudden that stuff was not there, but there were written supply agreements in place that they had to ship, and that they had to take the financial burden of doing that without having a reasonable commercial or legal discussion with the customer about is that still reasonable or not. And I've been in these discussions. They moved over time. They got more reasonable over time. But the final solution for that is still not there. For new systems, I think that was the leading point of your question. I would expect that that kind of transparency, that kind of bringing up new solutions, early warnings, telling you, look, you have a structural break in your system. If you agree to 6 months delivery time, or even 6 weeks later on in that ordering process, you've got a problem. Yeah. You will hit the wall. and then show some solutions for that. And there are plenty of that the industry learned. I mean, you can build dummies, you can put the cars on the parking lot, and you could do a lot to reduce the damage. It's even getting more critical when the customer calls you and say, look, the chips that you already have in your warehouse, please ship them to your competitor, because they do need that for the brand or for the part that you need better. If you want to make a commercial case out of that, what you need to do. I mean, without that, you're lost. If you want to build a commercial case out of such a story, you need a different system than it is in place today, with explaining the logic, connecting the dots in a totally different way than it's working today. So I think, again, I mentioned that before, it's sounding a little bit dramatic, but these things, for at least the tier 1 level of the automotive industry, is a question of living or die.
Yeah. What a great example. Thanks for sharing.
I wanted to build on what Beda was saying. The consequences of misalignment between sales and the supply chain can be huge. And well, lack of trust brings the sales organization to order things ahead of time, to kind of bufferize. So you're building a local inventory of things you don't need at a given time, but just in case the supply would not deliver. And this has huge implication in terms of balance sheet, in terms of cash flow, but it can also have loss implications. I mean, I have an example of a largest commercial shopping center in Africa, right? I was near Nairobi in Kenya, and there was so much distrust between the local sales organization and the supply chain, that we had a set of escalators that have been staying in the open, for almost a year. You can imagine, after a year, the escalators were completely rusted, and we had to just rip and replace them. And that was a huge cost for the organization, because there was no kind of trust between the sales and the supply chain. Yeah. So that cost us a lot.
Yeah, no, it's a great example indeed of there's a human aspect and there's a communication aspect, which again technology can help with, but it's still it's an enabler for that communication and work together to help. The last question I had was to Beda. You've worked in a German, an American, Japanese, and an Italian context, right? And we were talking about managing change and getting people along. But how do you do that when you have a global organization and different cultures expect different things from leaders, expect different things from technology, from a transformation?
Well, I think it came up this morning during the first panel discussion already. Change management is about people. It's to get in their minds and hearts to do something different tomorrow than how you do it today. And people need to give up on certain things. They win others. So it's a complex thing that is indeed, from my experience, very, very much linked to the cultural context. Yep. Of where you're doing change and what is. And I would like to pick then Japan and China, because if I talk about Italy and Germany, I will be biased. Yeah. So if you look at these two cultures, the Chinese cultures and the Japanese culture, I think it's 180 degrees different. Japan is a culture and has built an incredible success story on the automotive side. I mean, the OEM that I admire the most is coming from Japan. So they are built on continuous improvement, an entire business case. I mean, when I was a young engineer, they are flying planes to Japan to explain Kaizen and Monozukuri and all that credo of automotive was created in Japan. But revolutionary change is a no-go. Is from everybody is scared to death. Nobody buys into a case right from the beginning. And when we started to reorganize, and Marelli, just from the nature of the beast, being a keiretsu and making a step to an independent supplier, that's change. And that was not the failure of the management. It's just something that needs to be done by the management. But going to the people required roundtable meetings every single day, asking them, what are you proud of? What are you expecting from the company? What is for you success? Is making money important for a company today? So very fundamental things, trying to get very slowly under the skin before you get starting to talk about introducing new systems. In China, I mean, at JCI, we built during my 10 years running that business, we built up a $10 billion business, which was $1 billion per year. That was basically building a new plant once a quarter. And you couldn't never, ever done that in another place in the world than in this. I mean, the curiosity, the willingness of being the leader, of fighting you to the first place and getting things done is uncomparable in the entire world. It's one of the biggest threats that we obviously then see in the global automotive. It's a mindset thing. It's not better engineers, better universities, better this and better that. It's about how you want to win. And if you compare these two cultures, you see how different you need to approach this thing. And it will still be more difficult on one side of the equation. And how much fun it can be if you find the right culture and the right background of it, just keep running.
Thanks for the example. We have 5 minutes. I'll let you just comment, and then we open for questions.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to build on that, the cultural differences. I mean, imagine KONE is a company out of Finland. And the tallest building in Finland is half the size of this one. And they are the number one supplier of elevators in China. And China is the largest business in the world. It's the largest elevator market in the world. So, you know, a small company born in 1910 in Finland was able to become a global leader and to become the number one in China. And that was because we made a leap of faith in 1995 about China is going to become the largest market of the world, and we have to install our supply chain there, and we have to bring the latest technology. Unlike our American competitors that didn't want to bring their latest technology to China, we did, and we built from within China to that. And you know, the ability to deliver the China market from China with the latest technology has been a huge boost to our business. And just one example, the volume business in elevators is about 9 to 12 months lead time. In China, the demand is growing. They are now asking for 1 month lead time. So imagine the implication on the factory and the suppliers moving from 9 months to 1 month. And that was done by the ability to deal in each market with the cultural differences. And again, you know, we have a Finnish colleague here who knows this better than I do. But, you know, it's just amazing to see how a small company based out of Finland can become a global market leader.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So maybe we open for questions from the group. I see there's a question over there. In the back. Yeah.
Well, the aftermarket is characterized by the fact that there are about 13 million elevators in service in the world nowadays. And some of those elevators are 50 years old or more. and some are the latest technology. And as KONE, we are not only servicing all lifts, but we're servicing an inventory of lifts that come from many generations. So the number of parts, the number of suppliers is actually huge. I was talking about millions of spare parts, and it's coming from, thousands of suppliers. So, and you don't want to build unnecessary inventory. So you have to have a just-in-time business, because we're talking about a lead time of days, right? Or even, 24 hours. Obviously, for a building like this one, it's hours, right? But I think it's quite a significant portion of our business. It's where the profitability is the highest, and we need to protect that. And the ability to deliver the right part at the right time. I mean, using predictive maintenance, using IoT on the lifts, connected lift. We're talking about, Bart was talking about connected products. I mean, the lifts are connected now, and they tell you, how, when a given part of the elevators is going to fail, and, how fast you need to repair it. So it's actually quite a fast-moving business.
Fantastic. I think there's a question here.
Hey, the lady in front.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see. Yeah, you had. Maybe Beda, you want to...
Yeah, well, the automotive industry is changing dramatically. I think that the old distribution between OEM, Tier 1 and Tier 2, Tier 3, the questions of new players coming into the game, so the big software companies trying to take more and more ownership. If you look at the forecast, how much trillions will be made in the future by these services and by the software use and using cars in a totally different way than you do it today. This money needs to come from somewhere. So the whole thing will change dramatically. And with that, the role of the commercial people and what they need to ask for in the organization, how do they represent, will change as well. So there will be a significant change. I think that it came up this morning already in the discussion as well. The pandemic development, the COVID crisis accelerated and started the thinking process about future planning system and new distribution of these roles already. So there's a lot of thinking and a lot of ticking already going on. It is absolutely clear that the chip crisis would have had less damage to the Tier 1 level if the whole system would have been optimized as a system solution. There's no doubt that this still hierarchical thinking about, look, there's somebody who is right, and unfortunately, as I mentioned before, legally that was the case. My position is where everybody needs to dance for. And that's not optimizing. And I think that this historical thing was one of the barriers that had to be overcome, and the other one was the lack of systems. So there were no systems in place that allowed you to optimize the situation. So how many chips give to your competitor, you get something back, you produce other kind of vehicles. So to optimize a complex situation like that, the tools are not available today. And again, I think that mindset will change as the industry is changing as well.
So unfortunately, we're on time. Maybe we discuss, if Daria allows, one more question? Okay, one more.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So my question is, right, while we can invest a lot of effort in planning, doing it in an integrated way, but disruptions still happen, right? Some things we will not be able to plan for, and it becomes equally important for these kind of capabilities to make sure we are able to, right, in an orchestrated way, take response actions across our supply chain. So what is your thinking and your experiences on those lines, how you have navigated that challenge through tools, processes, organizational interventions?
Well, my experience at KONE is that, as I mentioned, I mean, we are a global organization with very strong regional cultures. And change management is about the ability to cope with, one vision, but, respect the regional cultures on how to drive change. And as you said, change is about organization, people, processes, tools, data. But I think managing the cultural aspect of change management is super important. If I was to admit a weakness, is that I feel that the change management at KONE is too European driven. And when it comes to implementing it in America or in China, we have challenges. So, the question is whether you need to have one global management practice for the whole world, or you are able to regionalize it a little more. But at the end of the day, I think it's the vision and the respect for the local cultures that helps to navigate through those challenges the fastest.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you, Beda and Pierre, particularly.
Welcome.
Thank you.